Major progress with artificial intelligence, the drive for electric cars, and the possibility of endless clean energy. We will take a look at technology advancements in 2022 and what to expect in 2023. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Technology is one of the most influential subjects in today's society. The advancement of technology has helped change the way we live our daily lives. Technology has dramatically changed the way we communicate and interact with the world. Technologies have also changed how we work. Electric motors enable cars to travel faster and more efficiently, while computers have made working more efficient and convenient. The introduction of driverless cars has captured public attention in a similar way to video games, when that debuted several years ago. Some of the most popular tech trends in 2022 include virtual reality, 3D printing, and wearable technology. In 2023, we can expect to see even more advancements in these areas, as well as in other areas such as artificial intelligence and robotics. With so many exciting new developments on the horizon, it's hard to predict exactly what the future will hold. However, one thing is for sure. The world of technology is always changing, and we can expect to see some amazing new innovations in the years to come. To discuss tech trends in 2022 and what to expect in 2023, we welcome Dan Ives. He is the Managing Director at Wedbush Securities and joins us from New York. From the other coast in Los Angeles, Roger Cheng is the Executive Editor of CNET News. Also in LA, Michael Priem is founder and CEO of Modern Impact. And from Maui in Hawaii, Wang is Principal Analyst and founder of Constellation Research. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I will start with a little confession. That report that you heard at the beginning of the show, about a minute of it, it was not written by me or the producer or any of our writers. It was actually written by AI. We just punched in a few keywords into a website and AI did the rest. So, Michael Priem, let me start with you. How far have we come with this technology?
I think we've come a long ways. I think there's a lot to look forward to here in 23. I think while we live in a very digital world, the physical world starts to become more and more digital every day. And our digital worlds that we live in are blurring the line in our physical world. I think we will see a lot more of that in the next year in several different behaviors that we see, whether it be in kids or our daily lives.
Do you think it's going to get to the point, Michael, where it could make my job redundant, really?
Well, I think about clients that we have in healthcare that are using AI to triage and help solve the shortage of healthcare workers. So your intake and your telehealth session starts with AI before you even communicate to help triage. So I think there's going to be a lot of different things and a lot of different ways we use technology. I don't know if it ever replaces the human chemical. I think the drive oftentimes to solve shortage and to increase capacity and to make, hopefully, with most objectives, life easier.
Roger Cheng, I'm going to take a few steps back. When we talk about artificial intelligence, what exactly is AI? I mean, is it just a super fast computer, or is it something completely different?
Well, it starts with a super fast computer. It really starts with a set of data, right? The idea here is that AI isn't a set program. You're not programming it to do things. It is actually learning based off of the information that you were feeding it. So AI does, in fact, evolve. It grows. It gets smarter over time. And now, I don't think we're at the point where AI can necessarily replace a lot of the core things we do. Speaking as a journalist, I don't foresee AI writing my feature stories for me, but there are definitely instances where AI can handle a lot more of the easier or the more basic tasks, for sure.
Well, actually, that was going to be my follow-up question to you, because you had a pretty big and influential technology website, CNET. Most people know what it does and what it publishes. I mean, and you say it will not replace your writers on CNET.
No, I think what it can do is make our lives a little bit easier, handle a lot of the sort of the more menial tasks. it's not just CNET, but I think a bunch of other publications. When I used to work for the Dow Jones Newswires, they had invested in AI as well to kind of pick out relevant data points from press releases. And so there are things like that. But when it comes to kind of putting together these kinds of larger stories, these themes, talking to folks, there's still a lot that I think AI still needs to develop or grow into before it becomes any kind of replacement for a human writer.
Wang, you've been writing a lot about AI. What's the future of this technology? There is something called generative AI. What is that?
Yeah, generative AI is the thing that we're talking about right now with ChatGPT-3 writing your video pieces. But that's really kind of the culmination of where we're headed right now. Really about being able to actually create new experiences, having systems be able to create code on their own, be able to kind of learn from the code, and also learn from humans. And the important thing that's actually happening with AI is we're basically coming to 4 areas, 4 questions everyone's going to be asking. When we're going to get full intelligent automation and AI? When we're going to augment the machine with the human? And that's where we figure out, why did you make an exception? Why are there actually, you broke the rules. Why are you not following protocols? We're also getting to the point when are you going to augment the human with the machine? And that's when we actually improve decision velocity. We give you information, insights, so you can act more carefully. And then, of course, when do we actually choose human interaction? When do we insert friction into the process? A human touch, a personalized capability. And that's where AI is headed. And generative AI is actually an output of that, where we're actually going to see, people learn from it. People are going to train these systems. These systems are going to get smarter over time. And the idea is for us to be able to get to a point where we're comfortable with that level of automation and that level of precision.
So, Ray, we will always require human interaction with AI, no matter how advanced it gets, right?
Yes and no. Yes, because when you involve a human, that's going to happen. But there will be a point where my chatbot talks to your chatbot, or my AI talks to your AI, and they agree on something, right? That could happen already. We see that with trades and markets. People's bots connect with bots in that kind of area. But you're also going to see that in other areas. Maybe your home automation system connects with a security system when something is breached. Like, those things will start to happen over time. So there's human-to-human interaction, human-to-machine interaction, and machine-to-machine interaction. They're all going to happen at the same time.
Dan Ives, what is the risk of this type of technology being abused? I mean, we've seen how some governments have abused technology. For instance, they're able to monitor your emails, they're able to listen in to your telephone calls. I mean, what are the risks of this type of technology absent some kind of regulatory organ or some kind of review system?
That's probably one of the inhibitors, in terms of big brothers watching, the security issues, more government get involved when it comes to AI. And look, and you're seeing an arms race go on between the US and China when it comes to AI. It's almost a decoupling that's going on between China as well as the US. And I think there's many companies that are going to benefit here. I think the big question is big tech, from the Amazons to the Apples to Google and others, versus more of the focused players in AI. Who ultimately wins this battle? And I think, we're talking about $200 billion that's up for grabs.
All right, Dan, I want to move on to, well, not exactly new technology, but existing technology. Let's talk about Twitter. You've been writing about Twitter. It was bought by Elon Musk. It's losing money, lots of money. In fact, you wrote a piece in Fortune magazine in which you said, time to end this nightmare. I mean, can it be saved, and can it become the kind of objective platform for news and information and opinion that Elon Musk initially talked about?
Look, I think it's ultimately, since Musk bought it, it's been a train wreck situation since the end of October, because, ultimately the freedom of speech in the town hall, it's actually been the opposite in terms of what you've seen with journalists banned and others, and advertisers have run for the hills. That balancing act is very, very difficult. And Twitter obviously had a lot of difficulty before monetizing, not just from an advertiser perspective, but subscription. So I believe it's not Musk that needs to right the ship. It's another CEO. I think that's something that's probably named, sooner rather than later, as Musk has talked about. And this is a moment of truth for Twitter, because does it become a MySpace and AOL, when you look out the next 2-3 years, or is this just a rocky start to the Musk reign that ultimately turns us around into a WeChat super app type of model over the coming years? But I'll tell you right now, I mean, at least where we look at today, I do believe it's probably going to be the most overpriced M&A transaction in the history of tech.
Roger Cheng, what is your view on where Twitter should be going? I mean, clearly, as Dan just told us a moment ago, it's losing loads of money. Advertisers are heading in the other direction. What needs to happen?
I mean, I agree with Dan that a new CEO, for sure, someone who's a little bit less unpredictable. There needs to be some stability brought back, right? There needs to be some clear guidance on things like content moderation, on the acceptance of toxic content, right? Which right now we've seen a rise in hate words, hate speech on the platform as Elon Musk has taken over. I mean, it's been a circus. Train wreck, I would call it a dumpster fire. It's a really terrible situation right now. And I think getting new leadership, a little bit of guidance, and a little bit of stability for this company. I think that the fact that it's just so chaotic right now, no one knows what to make of it. Advertisers don't want to touch this thing. It's absolutely radioactive. And for a lot of people, they're slowly turning off. They're going to things like Mastodon, which is a really, really complicated and difficult setup. But the fact that people are doing it just sort of tells you just how bad Twitter is right now.
Right, and Roger, of course, Twitter has also been exploited by some. We see the existence of bots, I mean, these automatically generated postings, which can push opinion in one or other direction. I mean, is there a way to counter that?
I mean, that was one of the big things that Elon Musk was championing, right, was to take out some of these bots. And some indications have shown that maybe there have been some of that, but it feels like that's a small part of this larger problem that Twitter needs to fix. And really, unless they address, again, the stability, the content moderation, and just the type of content that's free-flowing out there right now, I don't know if it can right itself.
Michael Priem, the media have been writing this week about what it calls a major breakthrough in nuclear fusion technology, a breakthrough which will apparently give us an unlimited supply of clean energy. Let's listen to what the United States Energy Secretary had to say. Her name's Jennifer Granholm. Let's listen.
It's the first time it has ever been done in a laboratory, anywhere in the world. Simply put, this is one of the most impressive scientific feats of the 21st century.
So, Michael, lots of optimism, quite a bit of hyperbole there from the Secretary, but the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists tell us not so fast. That journal says the so-called breakthrough will only have, quote, a distant and tangential connection to power production. Obviously, the Journal of Atomic Scientists doesn't share the optimism of the U.S. Energy Secretary. But how significant is this development?
I mean, I think it's very significant. As you look at the pressure we have on global climate change, these are one of the most pressing things that we globally look at. I think the big question, what's the impact and how quickly can the technology become something that's usable and something that can help actually offset our use of fossil fuels, et cetera. As I've sat and pondered even what this means, we have global economies and what the imbalance means economically to many of the organizations that live in some of our world's largest organizations that survive off of that. So I think the speed to market and what it means, here we're talking about data and big data and data mining, and you sit here and think about crypto and the energy burn that we have. We have California mandating electric car vehicles. We've had even this summer during heat waves where you've seen rolling blackouts. So the pressure is on us for this. So, personally speaking, I hope that it's something that can become commercially viable sooner rather than later.
Dan, what are your thoughts on this kind of technology, what's being called a breakthrough here? I mean, we still depend to a large extent on fossil fuels for our energy and to some extent on alternative, more green fuels, things like wind energy, solar energy, etc. But when we look at this type of energy, I mean, how far or how long will it take to bring it to market?
Well, I think that's always been the issue. I mean, great technology breakthroughs, but can you commercialize it? And then it's, okay, that's great as long as it's not in my backyard, right? So I think that's one of the issues that we're going through just overall in energy. I mean, there's a huge move to electric vehicles on the auto side. And I think you've seen that take a lot longer than everyone expected. And I think these are things that sometimes there's technology breakthroughs. It's about the monetization, the commercialization. Those are two different stories.
Roger Cheng, another big push in the United States this past year on electric vehicles, putting more electric vehicles on the road. But this effort has hit some roadblocks, if I could put it like that. There's been a shortage of chips, and that's held up production. There's been long waits for electric vehicles. The United States is still behind China and Europe when it comes to electric vehicle usage. But in terms of adopting that technology, that's been a big challenge in the United States. Do you think we've reached a turning point there?
We've definitely reached a turning point. I think there are folks who recognize the value of EVs, the impact that switching from a traditional gas car to an EV has on the climate. But you're right, there have been supply shortages. I'm optimistic that some of the tax credits that were passed with the Infrastructure Act will encourage folks to make the switch. But it's hard. The selection of EVs aren't quite as full breadth as they should be or could be. But it's going to take time. And I do think that folks are looking at EVs more as sort of a primary option as opposed to a novelty now.
Right, and Roger, do we need more help from the government in terms of infrastructure for EVs?
I think so. I think range anxiety is still a huge issue. I think there are Tesla's done a good job of setting up a network of these chargers around the country, but they're not necessarily compatible with everyone else. So I think there needs to be some work and some encouragement from the government to make it a lot easier, make that transition a little bit easier for consumers jumping into EVs for the first time.
Wang, you've also been doing a lot of work on this particular branch of technology. One of the questions we've been asking for a long time, a lot of people have been asking for a long time, and that is driverless technology. Where is that going? Have we seen any major breakthrough in the past year, or can we expect something in the year ahead?
I think the biggest challenge right now in the driverless technology is not just sensor standards, not in terms of that, it's really the training. Right? There's not enough data yet to train these systems to know when to brake. There's no comfort level yet in terms of if you put these into live production, what would happen? Would it know when to stop for pedestrian? Would it know when to stop when an object was behind them? Right? That level of confidence isn't there yet. And there's also legal roadblocks that are in the way as to, if there's an accident, who do you sue? Is it the network? Is it the driver? Is it the manufacturer? And I think all those rules have to actually be put into place. But the bigger problem right now in terms of like EVs is also really the infrastructure, not just on the charging side, the grids, right? The country of Switzerland basically banned EVs because they know if all these EVs were to jump into the market, they wouldn't have the grid infrastructure to be able to provide the capabilities on that electricity. And so that's kind of the challenges going back to some of the other areas we're talking about. We're going to need small modular reactors at 100 megawatts around the country to be able to handle this kind of capability. And for most EVs, they're basically using coal-fired or carbon-fired kind of electricity to get around. So we're going to have to fix a lot of that stuff to get there. On the autonomous side, I think the main thing to really realize is the training data that's going to be required is going to be needed. Right, the battle between computer vision on Elon's side and LiDAR, right, for everybody else, that's starting to take shape. And of course, we're going to see a lot of that at CES this year in Las Vegas.
And Ray, there's something which is called Mobileye. What is that technology?
Mobileye was the technology that Intel put together. This is basically a spin-off. This is probably the only successful IPO, one of a very, very slim number of IPOs that hit the market last year. And basically, they provided the chips that allow for this autonomous vehicle driving to actually happen. And they've been actually increasing production. It's probably a great spin-off from Intel to get to that IPO. They were able to get, up to about 1.4 billion in revenue last year, and this year they're actually moving up that market. And the main thing is really their ability to get these chipsets that allow for autonomous vehicle driving to actually occur.
Michael Priem, of course, the epicenter of technology in the United States is Silicon Valley, but it seems like Silicon Valley's been having a bit of a rough period right now. I mean, the giant Meta, for instance, which is the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, they've said that they are going to be laying off thousands of workers. This is the company that was going to give us Metaverse, which was this virtual reality world where people can use these special goggles to communicate with each other. Is all that on hold right now?
I don't think it's on hold. I think that we're literally going second incarnation as we drive towards a level of adoption that we haven't seen historically. There was a lot of conversation around the metaverse, and yet just like we've talked about the grid to support cars, we need users and we need content to exist in the metaverse too. And so that you're starting to finally see begin to exist. You've got kids asking for their allowances in Robux so that they can buy and have their online currency in the metaverse. And again, like many of the themes that we've had funneling through this technology conversation today, data is the natural resource, but the ad unit's the currency. So as you look at the metaverse and we start to see video games and other things existing in there, we still have an emerging, very, very pioneering ad model that doesn't fully exist within the metaverse yet. That as you see more and more user adoption, we'll start to see how this is be able to be converted into currency and dollars, whether it be in the ad unit or whether it be in other interesting ways that people decide to monetize in the metaverse.
Roger Cheng, what about money? I mean, is there still large sums of money being devoted to technology development? I mean, are people who invest this money, are they still willing to take the risk?
That's a great question, considering the hit that a lot of these tech companies have taken, and a lot of this directly tied to the ad market, which is created, right? And so it'll be an interesting, 2023 will be an interesting inflection point, particularly for Meta, who's really needs to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to investing in the metaverse, right? I think a lot of investors are looking for the company to kind of shore up its core business, the part that actually makes money, as opposed to investing in these kind of new areas, growth areas that really probably won't take off for a while. I mean, with the metaverse in particular, I'm really keen to see what shape the metaverse takes, whether it's going to be fragmented like it is now with the internet, or if it's going to be something that is more of a common platform. This is a lot harder than jumping on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook itself as a social network, right? You have to buy equipment. You have to live in this digital world. There's a digital economy that you have to understand, and while there are things like Roblox and Minecraft that are starting to educate folks into that, it's a hard sell for a lot of people looking at this as the next way to connect, and that's what companies like Meta are banking on, that will all sort of connect in this digital world, and it's for a lot of folks a really, really tough sell.
Dan Ives, let's talk about something that we all use every day, cell phones. What about 5G cell phone technology? I mean, there were a lot of promises made in terms of speed, quality of the connection, etc., but we haven't really seen that much of an improvement here in the United States, have we?
No, I mean, I think it's been slow to come in terms of, the technology, especially in China and other parts, has obviously been significantly ahead of what we've seen in the U.S. because of the build out of the carriers, and it's the carrot and the stick, because you could talk about 5G and the build out, but where are the applications? What is sort of the monetization? What's the ecosystem look like in terms of 5G? And I think ultimately that hype cycle has definitely been underwhelming so far. But as we've seen with technologies, it takes years sometimes for this to ultimately come to fruition. And especially when you look at Apple, I mean, the last two cycles in terms of 5G, those have been two of their most successful cycles, despite obviously what we see on the shortages coming out of China. And I think that's the important thing, is that it's setting the stage for what's still going to be massive growth. It's just been slow to come.
And will we see something in the year ahead, Dan?
Well, look, I think in the year ahead from a technology perspective, and obviously I'd be interested to hear what the other panelists are waiting to hear too, in terms of the coming year. I think it's really about Apple Glass. I think that would be probably the first one that we're looking toward. The AR/VR headset from Apple we expect to come out this summer. And one of your other guests talked about Facebook. You look at Oculus in terms of what they've done in the metaverse. I do think devices and some of these technologies are extremely important, because those are really the ramps onto the highway of the broader metaverse that, even though we're in a recession, on the other side of the storm, that's going to be a significant growth area.
Ray Wang, the other bit of technology news which has been making headlines for all the wrong reasons is crypto. We've seen the SBF meltdown. What happens to crypto now?
Well, there's two different things, right? Crypto technologies will still exist. Crypto trading desks that don't have regulation is a different set of issues. But we're going to see other things like NFTs will still be there. Blockchain technology will still be used. People will still be using Bitcoin in different ways, but not to the hype where we were before, right? That happens in a low interest rate low interest rate cycle where like cheap money is around, people were looking for other growth opportunities. What we're now getting to is much more practical uses. Imagine NFTs being used for land titles, right? You only do the title once, it's searched in a public record, it's transparent, you don't have to hit the title company like 20 more other times, right? You're going to see other technologies around Bitcoin and blockchain still playing a role when you actually need to figure out, proof, like the ability to find the veracity of data, about the chain of that information, the transparency. But you could also use a secure database, right? So people are going to make that decision as, are we going to use a blockchain technology or we're going to use a secure database? And on the Bitcoin side, the Bitcoin bulls and the Bitcoin, the folks that are still holding on the Bitcoins, I mean, they're still holding them because they came in at about 12,000. And then, it's at 16,000. They're still not under. And if you notice, there's kind of been a floor where Bitcoin is. And we will see country-backed cryptocurrencies, and those will happen over time. Every government's deciding whether they will build their own version of a digital currency. And I think those will evolve from the aftermath of this massive crash and loss of confidence in where crypto technologies are, and especially, what's happened with the crypto trading desks like, FTX. And we'll see some scrutiny on Binance as well.
Roger Cheng, when it comes to crypto, is the big challenge convincing users, convincing the public really that it does have value?
Well, I think after the crash this summer, as well as this collapse of FTX, yeah, the trust in crypto right now is at all-time low. I do agree that there are lots of uses. Blockchain, Web 3.0 is a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. And so the underlying technology and the applications for this are still, there's still a lot of value there. But when it comes to, I think, regular folks trying to get into this, the headlines here are just sort of affirmation of the fact that a lot of folks suspected things like NFTs were generally scams. And in many cases, they were, right? There are some legit ones, of course, but there's just a lot that's unregulated. There's a lot that is just legit scammy. And so I think the trust for this area has been broken. It's going to take a while for that to build back up again.
Michael Priem, I've just got a little bit of time left. What do you see as the biggest major technology development in the year ahead?
I think I like to think about some of these technology advancements and how they actually impact our daily life. Like we can talk about AI and we separate it from how it impacts us daily. And I think just as we discussed the crypto and how, we're associating crypto, but yet the underlying technology is providing value in so many other things. The analogy to title and title management is a great example. I think the biggest thing that we're going to continue to see is how it impacts, and we see a further merge between how we in our physical life interact with technology more. And it might be as simple as a medical device that we're pulling biometrics into a digital phone app. It might be how we interact with banking. It might be in our commerce systems of how we interact further today. As the pandemic has pushed us more towards digital purchasing, we now might be integrating the human dynamic with a personal one-to-one relationship in a secure area to purchase via our household brands. Like you look at any of the LVMH brands, they're all pushing very, very hard on personal concierge, and they're doing that digitally one-on-one with their best customers, not even having them come into the store, but providing a very, very deep, rich experience for them. Yep. So I think we're going to see more things like that happen throughout this next year, which feel more tangible, and they drive toward the anthropological shifts in us as humans.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Fascinating discussion. Thank you to all of you for being with us. And that's it for this edition of The Heat, but the conversation continues online. Join us on CGTN America's Facebook page to comment on this or any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at CGTN America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching.